So once we get the weight on the ground, what we really want to become aware of is the points of contact through the back body onto the ground. Let's just start in the hips. It's pretty common when we lay down that the back of the waist isn't necessarily really in contact into the mat. So just tip the tailbone a little bit and use the exhale, excuse me, use the exhale like a hand. And as you breathe out, let the belly sink into the hips. Let's bring the attention a little further up the back to the bottom of the ribs. Now, when we inhale, the ribs widen, and they really widen in all directions. So the base of the ribs, as we're inhaling, can clearly meet sinking into the mat, pressing down and wide. And then let's put the effort, the attention and the effort through the ribs. Let the hips release and relax completely. When we are breathing out, just have it last longer. So our attention goes back down into the belly and the belly sinking into the low back, into the hips. And when we come to our inhale, inhaling longer, experiencing the lungs right above the collarbones, all the way up into the neck. This is the very top of our lungs, the base of our neck. And then let's look at the back of the neck, the back of the head. Maybe tuck the head just a little bit, tuck the chin just a little bit. We won't hold that for too long. We tuck the chin slightly and press the back of the head both in toward the mat and up a little bit. So keeping the neck, the throat comfortable anyway, we're going to see if we can lengthen the neck just a little bit here. So as long as the throat is comfortable, gently pressing the back of the head into the mat. And then taking the attention back down, now lowering the spine, between the ribs and down into the hips. So the lower half of the spine, from the diaphragm down to the sacrum. And then let's work a little bit with our tailbone. When we are breathing out, add a real tuck at the tailbone, press the top of the hips, the back of the waist into the mat. So as you do that, you'll feel how you start to press a little bit on the soles of the feet. Now when the inhale happens, just release the hips, let the back of the waist just naturally lift. But then where we lift is the bottom of the ribs. So right at that diaphragm, that area lifts up a little bit. At some point, we need to breathe out again. When the exhale's underway, just release the ribs, let the lumbar spine sink, and then finish off down in the tailbone, rounding it up. Connect down the legs to the soles of the feet, press evenly on the feet, and then lift the hips just a tiny bit. When we want to inhale, just put the hips down, widen the ribs, lift the base of the ribs. Lowest part of the ribs, that's lifting off the mat. And we're just going to go very smoothly back and forth. So it's a deep, slow movement through the core of the body. Exhale, sinking the ribs down, the spine down, tucking the tailbone, ending up down in the feet and the hips completely, but just off the mat. Not a big lift, very small, lots of tuck at the tailbone. When we're inhaling, laying the hips down, then widening, lifting the ribs. So we'll just do one or two more. It's a restrained move that gives us a chance to experience sensations inside the body. Now, whenever we get that exhale going and the tailbone tucking, and when we get to the end of that exhale and we've lifted the hips, when you get to that point, just keep the hips off the ground. So we're not trying to lift them very high. So if I use my hands, I can get my hands underneath the hips. Maybe turn the hands on their sides and I can get them just under the hips. I don't need to be higher than that. What I'm going to do, though, is press equally on the soles of the feet. A small internal effort, I'm going to move the knees away from the hips. You can start to feel the thigh muscles came online. And then I'm going to leave this position when I'm exhaling. I'm going to lower the hips back down. The hips touch down. I want to tuck the tailbone a little bit and just sink the weight down bit by bit. See if you can end up in a placement where the back of the waist really gets to release into the mat and maybe feel a bit of energy down below the navel in the low belly. Inside there's some muscles doing a bit of work to give us a little tuck to the tailbone, a lengthening at the back of the waist. Now, we're going to bring the feet in a little closer to the hips. They're not trying to touch the hips, but just a little closer. And the feet, you want to feel them about hips width apart. So just experience what's going on through the feet. Press a bit more weight into the ball of the foot, and then lift up the heel. And then press a bit more weight in the ball of the foot, keep the heel lifted, tuck the tailbone, and start to curl the hips up, curl the back of the waist up, and lift the spine till we're at the bottom of the ribs. And right here, once again, just push outward a little bit with the knees. You won't get a lot of movement, but you should get some sensation in the legs. And then exhaling, touch the heels down. Put the back of the waist down. Let the top of the hips sink in the mat. And let all the weight just melt down. Okay. Now keep the heels down, lift the toes. And just see if you can wiggle and play with the toes. Can't see them, so we're just going to have to go by feel. But we've got our toes moving and wiggling. And then keeping the heels down, the toes off the ground, turn both feet outward without the knees moving very much, and turn them inward and outward. Just little windshield wipers, a couple more times. And then line the back up. Put the ball of the foot down, keep the toes lifted. When we inhale, lift the hips. Take the hips up a bit higher. So we've put the weight at the bottom of the ribs. From the bottom of the ribs all the way to the tailbone, off the ground, more or less a straight line. Got the toes lifted. Now we're going to bring the arms down onto the ground, make fists with the hands, press the back, the pinky side of the fist onto the mat, press the shoulder blades and the shoulders downward, and then just lift the heels off the ground and touch the toes to the ground. And then keep the hips lifted, but lower the heels. Okay, now lift the front of the foot, press on the heel. And put the front of the foot down and lift the heel. And once more, when we're ready, heel down, foot lifts. And then put the front of the foot down. Feel the tuck to the tailbone as you lower the hips. Once the weight goes back on the hips and the low back, just relax the arms. Okay, but bring the feet maybe just a little bit closer and towards the hips. Press evenly onto the soles of the feet. Let's start with an exhale that creates a bit of tuck to the tailbone. As the tailbone tucks and scoops, just let the hips float. Then when we lift the hips, we're lifting the back so we get to the bottom of the ribs. Somewhere around there is as high as we're going to come on the back. So we got the feet flat, we got the hips lifted. Now press the left knee forward and then bring it back in. Press the right knee forward, bring it back in. So let the hips rock a little. When I push the right knee forward, the hips swivel a little bit to the right side, just to get the range of motion. So I don't have to make it super big. Just feeling the pushing forward of the knee, one side then the other. And then make it internally a little bigger. You push one knee forward. When it's pushed forward, draw the other one back a little bit. And then bring them both level and switch sides. So one knee pressing forward, one knee pressing back. And put the glutes to use. They like to squeeze things. So let the glutes squeeze the hips a little bit. Okay, now we first pushed the left knee forward. When the right knee pushes forward, that's last. After that, come to neutral, and then tuck the tailbone, and with the exhale, place the hips back down. Let the weight of the hips sink down and just along the back. Probably already the whole length of the spine would like the opportunity to realign. And then for a moment, just allow the weight of the hips to sink in the ground. Okay, so press on the feet. On the inhale, bring the hips up. Use the arms again. So make a light fist, and the pinky side of the fist just pressing a little bit. But do get the shoulders and the shoulder blades making contact with the mat so we don't lean weight into vertebra. So we get into this place where we feel safe and strong. And then just lift the heels, put the heels down, lift the base of the toes, ball of the foot. We're going to go back and forth. Now they're just coming up and down. We're not trying to create a hold, just back and forth. Now at some point the body says, wait a minute, this doesn't feel comfortable somewhere. So that could be the low back, could be in the thighs, the knees, in the feet. But when we find some discomfort, we're going to put the hips down on the ground. We're going to pause for a moment. If you can do a few more, then just a few more. Okay, no. So our last one, when the heels are down, tuck the tailbone on an exhale, lay the back down on the mat, and just pause, letting the weight of the back rest. And then use the hands to grab the knees and bring the knees in toward the armpits. And just have the arms hold the weight of the legs in a place that's comfortable for the back to release. Take the attention to the breath and let the breath move freely through the body. And then let's bring the knees in a bit closer. They're about hips width apart. Okay, and then see if you can just stretch the legs out. Just take the hands behind the legs, just to help give a bit of support. And what we're going to see here is if we can just push up through the soles of the feet, stretch out the knees, maybe try to point the toes toward the face. Okay, once the legs feel a bit stretched out, let's let go of the legs. So we've got the legs pointing straight up, and let's put the arms pointing straight up. And then just soften the ankles. So everything's straight up, and we're just going to make some simple moves. When I inhale, I'm going to lower the left arm and the left leg back down toward the ground and keep the right arm and leg up there. And when I exhale, I'm going to bring them both vertical. And when I inhale, it'll be the right side, arm and leg lowering down, and they'll come back up when I breathe out. Let's just do a couple more very easy sets. Okay, so when we do a right side, that'll be our last. And after we've done the right, simply bend the knees, take them in the hands, move the knees toward the armpits, and just pause in a place that's comfortable for the low back. And one or two nice deep breaths down into the belly. And let's keep the knees bent, but bring them a bit closer. We'll have the knees bent, we'll have a little bit of flex at the ankle. I'm going to let go of the knees, I'm going to take my arms vertical, and then I'm going to work the opposite sides. So when I inhale, I'm going to lower the right arm near the ear and stretch the left leg out long. And when I exhale, left knee bends in and right arm goes vertical. And then so it's opposite arm and leg. Inhale takes them down toward the ground. Exhale brings them back to their starting position. And just a comfortable tempo. So as we work here, have the attention in the experience of the low back. See if you can do the move, modify the move, so you're working on keeping the low back down toward the mat. Okay, let's do our last pair. So when we're done, again, the hands come to the knees. We separate the knees, knees moving toward the armpits. And then keeping hold of the knees, just lift the feet up in the air so they're higher than our knees. And we're going to create circles through our ankles, circling both directions. So letting the feet move freely. And then neutral at the ankle and circle the feet around the knees. And again, both directions. And then come neutral and just have the hands on top of the knees. Just let the feet and lower legs relax. Use the hands to separate the knees and then circle them close together. And both directions, circling a few more times. And then just coming neutral, drawing the knees in for a moment. And then release the legs. That's it, the feet rest down once again, about hips width apart, not too far away from the hips. Now we're going to lift the hips again. So the arms alongside the body, press on the feet. Inhale, bring the hips up. Once the hips are lifted, they don't want to be higher than the knees. We're not trying to push the hips up as high as we can. Think of a pretty straight line from the from the shoulder blades to the knees, and the hips are in that line. So let's move on. When we inhale, lift the arms up, take them overhead, just off the ground. And now press the backs of the shoulders down, press on the feet, and now maybe lift the hips maybe just a little bit, and then push the knees away. And then when you exhale, put the hips all the way down, bring the knees in, grab the knees with the arms, and this time, lift the upper body. So the arms wrapped around the legs, bring the upper body up toward the knees. And then when we exhale, put the feet down. For the inhale, lift the hips, take the arms up, arms go overhead almost to the ground. If it's a comfortable move for us here, don't right now try to push the hips too high at all. Just get the hips off the ground, the arms overhead near the ears, and then bend the wrists, rotate the arms so the fingertips point out to the sides, and then carefully see if you can keep turning the arms. Now don't lock the muscles. We're turning the arms, we want the muscles to flow over each other, make room for each other, and we just gently keep rotating. So maybe we rotate to the point where the thumbs point outward. So push through the arms, keep the weight from sinking into the back of the head, tuck the chin, look toward the knees, push the knees outward away from the hips, tuck the tailbone, and now push the hips a little higher. And then we're going to release. Exhaling, the hips go down, arms come up and over, grab the knees, draw them in, curl up to the legs. So once you've curled up and you've got the hands on the knees, pause there, straighten up the legs, and then reach out past the legs. So once again, if you're comfortable rotating the arm, we've bent the wrist, we turn the arm so the fingertips point down, the thumb points outward, tuck the chin, look at the low belly. You get an exhale, see if you can make the belly sink into the body as you breathe out. And then take the hands behind the head. Use the hands to lower the head down. Take the hands to the knees, bend the knees, draw the knees wide toward the armpits, and then release the feet back onto the mat, the knees close together. Pressing on the soles of the feet. When it's an inhale, lift the hips, bring the arms up. So this time just pause with the hips lifted, so the hips in line with the knees and shoulder blades, the arms straight up at the ceiling. Bend the wrists, turn the arms so our fingertips, they point in the direction of our toes and the thumbs are outward. And then press toward the ceiling. Now tuck the chin, work with flattening the neck toward the mat, and then lift the shoulders, push up, and then lower the arms close to the ears. So now the shoulder blades push on the ground. Make sure in this position you've taken the weight out of those upper vertebrae. And then tuck the tailbone, exhale, put the hips down, bring the knees in, grab the knees, curl up. And then once you've curled up, holding the knees, release the legs, stretch them up straight for the ceiling. If they don't straighten fully, keep them safely bent so the knees move towards the chest. Think of where your heels are. We don't want the heels too far out away from the hips. The more we can shift the weight of the legs over the hips, the better for the core of the body. So we've got our legs straightish or straight, and the arms are reaching out past the legs. Again, we rotate the arm, we press out through the palm. And then we're gonna use the hands, guide the head down, bend the knees, place the feet, and just pause for a moment. So just one or two more breaths, and let them be long. Let the belly fill like a balloon. Okay, now if you've got a yoga block or a suitable pillow or a fat but not too heavy paperback, what we're going to do is we're going to take the block and put it between the knees. Now we're going to use it in a couple of positions. So I'm just kind of face onto the camera, and I've got this block as wide as possible. Right, whatever it is I'm using. So, you know, to get this kind of width, something as stiff as a yoga block is ideal. We're going to do this with the block narrow, and at that point, the pillow is easier to work with. But I want that width if I can get it. And I'm going to bring the insides of the feet so they touch. So the inner line. And then just lightly but clearly squeeze the legs onto the block. And what I need here is, I don't want the block digging into the knee. So I'm just down into the thighs, not right on the knee. Once I have the legs in position, I take the arms wide out at shoulder height. And then initially I'm going to keep the gaze upward, but when I exhale, I'm going to tip the legs over to the left. Now I want to try to keep the sides of the feet lined up, touching, as I take the knees to the left. Initially I'm just going to look straight up. And inhale, I come back up neutral. I want to flatten both feet and feel that neutral place. And then breathing out, going to the right. As I tip, I want to see if I can keep the sides of the feet in contact. And then we go back and forth. Once you've got the rhythm for the legs, let's start to turn the head away from the knees. Okay, so we went initially to the left, so going to the right will be our last one. Once we've done the right, let's come in neutral. Let's take the block away for a moment, take the feet further apart, and just pause to let the weight of the hips release into the mat. Use the breath to fill the belly like a balloon on the inhale, and really let all the air out of the balloon, have the hips, the belly sink into the hips on the exhale. Okay, so we're going to use the block again, but now flat. So it's kind of got three different widths, but we're just going to jump right to the flattest width. Again, make sure it's not going to create pressure in the knees when I press the legs together on the block. Sides of the feet are touching, feet are close into the hips. And then tipping the legs. So when I tip the legs, what happens to that? I'm going to the left. So the right foot just immediately comes off the ground. It's trying to stay side by side to the left. And then I can just look away. And the inhale is going to bring me up. And I tip, trying to keep the sides of the feet right where they were when I go to the other side and I look away. And then once or twice more. So end after a right one. And then once we get the knees back up in neutral, we're going to remove our block. And just pausing for a breath here. Now when you exhale, grab the knees in the hands, bring the knees in towards the chest so they're about hip width apart. And then lift the feet up so we bring our heels up higher than our knees. And then let's cross the wrists. So the hands on the opposite knee. And then check inside the hips. We want to curl the tailbone up enough so it's off of the mat. We want the belly drawn into the hips. It's going to move naturally as we breathe, but we want some strength in the belly to help keep that lift in the tailbone. I'm going to keep the ankles flexed. I'm going to release just the right arm and take my right arm vertical. I'm going to bend the wrist and rotate the whole arm. As I turn the arm, I want to turn the fingertips towards the feet and the thumb outside, and then pressing the palm toward the ceiling. And then lower the arm down close to the ear, just off the ground, but pushing out through the palm. And then put the eyes to work. Look down the face, looking for the low thighs. Now keep pressing through that right palm. Sink the back of the waist in the mat. And then put that left heel down onto the mat. So just a little contact of that left heel, and start to scrape that heel out so the left leg straightens. Push out through the sole of the left foot and the palm of the right hand, And at the same time, lower the low back into the mat. And now bring that left leg up vertical as you're exhaling. And then bring the right arm up vertical and push them both up toward the ceiling. And then bend the left knee, put the right hand back on the left knee. Now check in the hips that the tailbone is curled up. Check that the heels are up higher than the knees. And then release the left arm, taking it vertical. Rotate the whole arm. So fingers point towards feet, thumb points outward. Push up in the palm, lifting the shoulder. And then lower the arm just close to the ear, off the ground. And press out through the palm. So pressing out, release in the shoulder, in the upper back. So those muscles get drawn out as we push out in the palm. And let's lower the right heel. Feel the contact in the heel, and then scrape out the leg, long on the ground. Push out through the foot. Push out in the palm, and press the back of the waist downward. And then let's bring that right leg vertical, and then the left arm. They both press toward the ceiling, and then bend the knee and put the hand back on the knee. And then check in the hips, tailbone is still curled up off of the mat. And let's do the first side again. So right arm goes vertical, arm rotates, wrist is bent, pushing up. And then bring the right arm close to the ear and push out. Take the left heel to touch the ground and scrape the leg out long. Push through the foot and push through the hand. And connect them both together at the back of the waist. And then bring the left leg vertical, the right arm vertical. They both press to the ceiling. And then bend the knee and the hand goes back on the knee. So holding to both knees, tuck the tailbone, lift the tailbone off the ground, and then extend the left arm. So we rotate the arm, we push for the ceiling, it comes down close to the ear, and we push out for the wall behind us. And then the right heel touches down, scrapes out long. And then we're pushing out through that right foot, out through that left hand, and the low back going down into the ground. And then let's take that right leg up vertical, that left arm up, and they both push for the ceiling. And then the knee bends. And now let's put the hands back on their own knees. Let the feet relax. Gently open the knees apart using the hands, and then circle them close and circle wide. Okay, and then bring the knees side by side and hug the legs in close to the body. And then keeping the sides of the legs touching, put the feet down as close as you can to the hips. Press on the soles of the feet, and then just bump the hips over a bit to the right side and put them down so we're mainly on the left hip because we bump them to the right. And now drop the knees to the left and then roll to the left shoulder. Now I want to adjust in my hips, so I've got the hips stacked, one on top of the other. And then the knees are stacked, one on top of the other. And I'm going to pull the knees up a bit so they really feel to me like I've lined up my knees with my hips. I've got the feet one on top of the other, and I'm going to bring them in as close in towards my hips as I can. So I've got the lower body sorted out. this bottom arm, this left arm, is just going to hook onto that right top leg. And now I'm going to see if I can just work my shoulder blade, get it to relax down. So my low side is my left side. Just fiddle that left shoulder blade down without moving too much in the hips. So when I get this position, I'm going to release my right arm, pointing up at the ceiling. I'm going to bend the right wrist. I'm going to rotate the right arm. So I've got my fingers pointing away from me, the thumb outward. I press up in the hand. Now, right now, my back of my head's just resting down, and I'm going to look with my eyes, not up at that upper hand, but I'm going to try to see my right armpit. So I'm looking downward. Maybe you can just see the cheeks of the face. That's a good place to look. And then from here, lower that right arm straight down near the ear, just off the ground, and push out through that right arm. Now we get the arm down near the ground, the hips want to move, and you can feel that start to happen on the inside. So if you can keep the hips really one on top of the other, and that left hand, you might need to use it to press that right knee so it doesn't squirm around too much. Now that left arm, start to move it away from the ear, about halfway to the shoulder, still off the ground, but gently now pushing outward away from the body. So we're going to let the right shoulder sink down, but we're still trying not to let the right hip move. It would love to fall over to the right. We want to try to keep it on top of the left. Still with the head face upward, the eyes looking for the cheeks. And then just one more push out through that right palm. And then to release, soften the right arm, just bring it soft up vertical, and then take it down onto the top side of the body. Release the left arm, let it relax. And now we're going to come back onto the back. So just rolling on the back if we can, keeping the legs close. Swing the hips back into neutral. So just take the feet apart a little bit, let the knees drop inward. Just see if we can find a pause place. Just feel the difference within the hips. And then walk the feet back into contact, sides of the legs in contact, feet very close to the hips. Press on the feet, lift the hips and just bump them to the left. And then tip the legs and have the knees fall all the way over. And then we're going to take ourselves all the way onto the right side. So for myself, I usually need to sit up just kind of a little bit at the right so I can get the knees one on top of the other, the hips one on top of the other. Knees coming straight out from the hips. I'm going to pull those feet back toward my hips. And then this bottom arm, the right arm, I'm just going to grab down near that top knee. I'm going to start to release that back down again. But I want to do it without the hips being moved around too much. I'm really working for the hips stacked one above the other. Once I've gotten that right side down where I can get it, I'm going to take the left arm vertical. I'm going to reach for the ceiling, bend the wrist, rotate the whole arm so the thumb is outward. Press upward through the arm. So although I've got all this rotation in the arm, I don't want to brace the muscles. I want them to be able to move and slide over each other as I push up. And then from there, I'm going to bring the arm down close to the ear, still pushing outward. And then I'm going to make sure for my gaze, I'm looking down the face, pushing out in the palm, looking down the face. and keeping that top knee and hip from moving around. So that whole top side, from the palm all the way down into the sacrum, into the SI joint, it's one elongation. And now that left arm, it moves away from the ear about halfway toward the shoulder. So pressing out sideward. And now I'm really letting that left shoulder blade sink downward as I push out. Okay, let's release. So soften the left arm, just float it up tall, and then lay it on the top side of the body. Relax the right arm. And then let's come back onto the back. Once we're on the back, separate the feet, let the knees fall in for a moment. And then keeping the feet wider apart, just move them a little further away from the hips. So the knees really drop towards each other. We're not making any effort really to keep the legs here. We want to let the sacrum just sink into the ground, the back of the waist just sinking down. Okay, so let's adjust the legs. We're going to roll to the side again. We're going to come up to sit it. So when we're ready, drop the knees to a side. Let's press ourselves up. Now, we did promise a bit of standing work, so we have to see many ways to get there. So it depends on your needs, right? If the one obvious way is just to pull the legs in and swing up. If the knees aren't happy, then you come first on hands and knees, make our way up. Okay. So just take a moment to find the feet. I want to feel where the weight ends up. There's a real tendency for us to just dump weight on the heel. So see if you can work even weight through the feet. And as you do that, feel what muscles you need to use to do that. Start to use the thigh muscles clearly and use the muscles in the calves and shins clearly. And kind of energetically push weight into the foot. And then put more weight in the heels and turn the feet outward. And then put more weight in the ball of the foot. Take the weight off the heel and swing the heels out. And right here, press evenly on the feet. And then put the weight on the heel and swing the front of the foot, the toes out. And then lighten the weight in the heel and swing the heels out. So we've walked those heels and feet out about shoulder width. What I'm going to do now is turn the feet in and bend my knees. So if we're having a knee issue today, if the knees aren't great, we have to see if we can modify this to get our version of the width between the feet and the amount of bend that works in our knee. I'm trying to find a place with a bit of light here. So it can be any amount of bend. It can be any amount of distance. If possible, there's a number of ways, obviously, to get a posture like this, but we're exploring the posture where the feet are turned in and the knees bent. And if I were to stay tall and look down, just move my eyes, my knees have blocked out my toes. And then from here, I'm going to tuck the tailbone and move the tailbone forward and back. And then just have the tailbone, slow the movement down, but gently back and forward. As you make that movement, see if you can press a little more weight at the base of the big toe. And then it's not this is a subtle thing, pressing the knees apart. So I'm not trying to jam the joint outward. I'm trying to energize the muscles to press the knees apart. So end up with a little tuck here in the hips. And then the inner thighs, pull the inner thigh muscles into the hips, and internally a feeling like they'd like to squeeze towards each other as you press the knees lightly outward and press at the base of the big toe. And then see if you can hold that and swing the arms up, reach for the ceiling. So as you inhale, really lift the ribs, lift the shoulders, and then lift the ears away from the shoulders. Keep that tailbone tucked, keep that knee bent so the hips sink a little bit. And then just bring the arms down. When we're exhaling, palms are facing upward here. I'm going to touch my shoulders. When my arms go out long, I'm going to point my fingers down and just lightly press, just lightly. Touch, lightly press. And then next time I touch, they stay. Okay, tailbone still tucked under. Still try to produce weight around the base of the big toe. And then turn the right elbow, and then the left elbow, and keep the head straight forward. So the ribs and shoulders turning, hips, they're just getting dragged a little bit. Head staying straight ahead, right elbows forward, pause there, extend the right arm, point the fingers down, push out through the palm. Now the left hand, release the hand from touching the shoulder, just turn the fingers down and push the elbow a bit higher, and then turn center and let them switch. So just want to make sure everybody's following the movement. So stay in touch with the tailbone. It would love to push backward. So it's enough of a tuck under to flatten the sacrum and stretch the lower lumbar vertebra. Okay, so left pushes forward, slow down, stop there, and the left arm is forward. And then keep the left arm forward, turn the chest forward, bring the right arm forward. So again, we got to find what we can do with our legs. The point is not to strain our joints. The point is to challenge the muscles. So adjusting for ourselves. I've got my tailbone tucked. I'm going to see if I can sink a little lower. And I'm going to take the arms a little higher, a little wider. And then what I'm going to try to do now is in my back. I want to try to push the back back, lift the back of the head up, tuck the tailbone, and then let the arms find their own place. You might want to be a little higher, a little wider. Just listen to your shoulders, move the shoulder blades forward. So that's along the side of the body toward the front. And then we're going to get out of here by softening the arms, just melt them down, stretch up the legs, get the feet back into a normal place for the legs. Knees just going side to side. So just a little kind of marching movement here to soften up the joints. So you can lift the foot or you can just keep the heel down. And then again, depending on the knee, right? If we can pick the knee up. So when we lift one leg, the knee we're concerned about obviously is the one that's staying on the ground. So potentially a smaller motion here. And then just try an outward motion. Okay, now let's come neutral. So now we'll just step into a wider stance. So, you know, I joke about my knees because they're a source of constant attention. But it's important that this stance is one that's comfortable in the leg. So the feet could be face forward or turned out, but it's got to be so I feel strong from my hip down into the ball of the foot, out through the sole of the foot. So this is our version. Could be wider, could be closer, the angle could change. We have to find one where we're powerful. And then what I'm going to do is take my left hand, touch my left leg, slide the hand down just above the knee, and then take the right arm out, take it up, take it over, and then maybe go lower. And then I'm going to inhale up. So we're going to do this in stages because a number of things that can happen. I'm going down the right, I'm pausing just above the knee, out from the shoulder, up tall. I go out, I go potentially further. So as the head comes down below the heart, when we come back up, it's possible to get dizzy. Now, we can change that with careful repetitions. So if that happens to me, I don't initially want to take the head lower than the heart height. But if it's not an issue, then I go as low as I can. But just pushing through an issue won't actually solve it. That was a couple of decades of painful learning on my part. We have to go to the edge, close to the edge, not literally on the edge, but close to the edge in a way in which the body feels safe. And if we can have the body feeling safe and still, if we can have the body feeling safe and still working, then it will transform. So transformation comes to us by creating a feeling of safety in the body. Okay, let's pause there for a moment. And then that left leg, turn the knee outward, come down deep in an angle. Again, modifying based on our body. So lots of variations here. And right now, what I'm trying to achieve is not a literal specific position, but I'm trying to sense the way the sensations, literally, the feelings, and adjust what I'm doing so nothing is painful. So there's almost an infinite number of variations here. So at the start of today's class, when we were on our backs, lifting our hips, we did a few of lifting the heel and then lifting the front of the foot. So in this position, we get the same action through the calf and the shin, but there's much more weight involved. So you have to be much more careful. Okay, we get to the left. We're not going to lift the heel. We're going to pause here. Always check the placement of the knee. It needs to be above the foot as opposed to rolled inward. It can be back behind. That's fine, and that's dependent on our knee. When we say we want the knee above the foot, what we don't want is this, where the knee's dropped in. So we won't stay here long. We're going to take the front leg is the right. I'm going to take my left arm up. I'm going to push the palm toward the ceiling. I'm going to bring the palm outward. So the hand clearly above my shoulders, like I'm trying to create a long line from the back foot out to that palm. And then I'm going to carefully but clearly rotate the arm. Again, not to lock muscles or joints, but to actually just put some gentle stress through them so they'll move and rotate. And then I'm going to look with my eyes. I'm not going to lean my head over, but with my eyes, I'm going to look from my chest. Press on the back foot, push out in the palm. And then use the inhale. Let's come up. We're going to do this on the other side. So switch legs. So come into the position now with the right knee bent, the left leg straight. Feel strong in the feet, and then move the arm. Stretch out long. So press out in the palm, rotate the arm. The head stays lifted, but the eyes look down, looking down the face with the eyes. And then put the muscles to work. There's lots of leg muscles that we get in these positions, and we're not actually asking enough of them. And then the inhale is going to draw us back out of there, bring us up. Let's get our feet in close. Let's put ourselves back down on the mat. Stretch the legs out and gently give them a shake. I just want to fiddle my camera. Okay, so just grab anywhere on the legs. Legs are straight, thigh muscles active, pulling kneecaps toward the hips. Ankles are active, and just hold where it's easy. Sincerely where it's easy. Let the chin tuck. The exhale moves the belly inward into the hips. And then bend the elbows a little bit, and the elbows move away from the back and draw the shoulder blades away from the spine. So we're using the arms and shoulders, but not the spine. Allow the spine to relax. And the effect of bending the elbows can be felt with the spine being stretched. Keep the thighs working. And then from the inside, push the hips down in the ground. Press on the sit bones from the inside. Okay, when the inhale happens, soften the arms, just slide the hands up. So we get here, we're going to bring the legs a bit closer. I want to turn the feet inward. Just have a bit of energy here, again, in the thighs, a bit of energy to turn in the legs. So heels are out shoulder width. When I inhale, I'm going to reach wide. I'm going to reach straight up by my ears. So same arms where I bend the wrist. And then I rotate the arms. So the fingers point out to the sides. I'm going to press the shoulders up. So literally, internally, feel like you'd like to push the shoulders up to the ears, but then lift the head, the ears up away from the shoulders. And see if you can keep a lot of power down the back body, all the way down into the sit bones and down the legs. Just another breath or two. Really press the ceiling up. And you get an exhale, soften the arms, let the arms melt down. Try to stay tall through the back body as the arms come down. And then just start to walk the arms out. And then really soften up the back. Just really get easy with it. Let the chin tuck, just let the head hang. So using the head like a dumbbell, we're just going to let it hang over and draw on the spine all the way down the back. Okay, and then inhaling, slide the hands up the legs, and now bring the legs side by side. So I want to feel my sit bones, that the weight's even there. We're going to take a twist. So I'm just going to inhale, sweep the arms up, comfortable place. When I exhale, I'm going to turn toward the right. The right fingertips touch the ground behind me. The left fingertips just touch over somewhere on the right side. Internally, I'm looking for a place where I don't want to lean back, right? I want to try to stay pretty vertical with my spine. So I'm not going to force anything. I'm going to be on my fingertips, so there's flexibility, movement for the shoulder. I'm just going to look back and sit tall and keep the legs working and engage the low belly. And then when it's an inhale, I'm going to release the arms. As they float up, I turn forward. I'm going to turn to the other side when I exhale. And then when I inhale, same thing. I'm going to use my inhales now to switch sides. And like a full breath, and then a turn. Okay, and then we began at the left. We're going to end at the right. So after I've done the right, the inhale will turn me forward. And a longer inhale or a fresh inhale to reach upward, and then a longer exhale to reach outward, touching anywhere on the legs. Tucking the chin, draw the thighs into the hips, and then open the elbows apart. So elbows spread apart, elbows move toward the feet. And we're doing this to get the shoulder blades drawn wide. And breathing out, ease the belly back into the hips, into the low back. So a very simple forward bend. And it's an interesting position because we can also do the forward bend from the back. And then on the inhale, just slide the hands up the legs. And now we're going to come on to the back. We're going to bend the knees, swing the hips forward, take the back down, the knees into the chest, and then go right to bending the knees with the soles of the feet toward the ceiling. And reach up. See where you can take hold with the hands. Wherever we can get hold, simply let the weight of the arms hang off of the legs. Knees are comfortably apart, feet up toward the ceiling. Just adjusting the neck and the back of the head. And then again, looking down the face. And then soften, release the legs, let them stretch up. Just have the hands at the backs of the legs. Now, both hands take hold of the left leg. When it's an inhale, lower the right leg directly down. And keep the heel just off the ground. And lift the upper body. And look down at that right foot. Press out at the base of the big toe. And internally, let the back of the waist sink toward the ground. Now put the back of the head down. Bring the right leg up. Both hands hold the right leg. On the inhale, lower the left leg. Take it down just off the ground. And then lift up the upper body. And look down for that left leg. So we hold here for a moment. And sinking the back of the waist into the mat. And then return the head, bring the leg up, bend the knees, hands on the knees, move the knees towards the armpits.